Take a look at the local dailies in depth. Yes, and if at all you visit the streets of social media, you definitely know the biggest conversation. It's the same story there on front page of the Daily Nation. Lose Canon. They say it's a costly gaffe. I do have a physical copy of the Daily Nation today. Nyeri Governor Kahiga has ignited national outrage with utterances viewed as celebrating the death of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, with ensuing backlash forcing him to quit his post in the Governor's Council, but demands for tougher sanctions intensified even as the incident triggered a political showdown. I do have my own opinion about this story, but right now I'm just sharing what the dailies are talking about. Now, they say in February, the governor stoked controversy with disparaging remarks on a community. This means, according to this paper, that this is not the first time that he has done this. There's a very interesting story to counter this on page 3 of the Daily Nation, where mourners continue flocking to Bondo, and now we see a group of elders from Mount Kenya region visiting the home of Raila Odinga's widow, Ida Odinga, in Siaya. Yeah, interesting. That's on page 3. There's also a story on page 2 about a Kenyan who's been awarded for conservation efforts. Now, he received the Lifetime Achievement Award for the International Fund for Animal Welfare in London. That's Dr. Abdullahi Ali, who's been honored in London for pioneering conservation of the critical endangered Hirola antelope. But the main story in the inside pages is about a reckless speech, and that features on pages 4 and 5 of this paper. There's even a warning from the Deputy President and other stories on the inside pages. Yes, there's also mention about the Cybercrimes Act, which is part of the 8 different laws that the President signed into force last Wednesday, just before he made the announcement about Raila Odinga's death, and that is also a big discussion going on in most of the papers. On the back page, matters sports given prominence. Poor record in North Africa looms large as Nairobi United Police chase Africa glory. Now, the football Kenyan sides are just one win away from qualifying for the group stages of their respective CAF competitions. Big conversations around football there. Meanwhile, Arteta, allow me, Arteta has praised centre forward Gyökeres as Arsenal striker ends goal drought. Walichapa timu inaitwa Atletico Madrid mabao 4-0. That's the Daily Nation. The same story is there on the front page of Taifa Leo. Mtema Sumu, sura ya gavana wa Nyeri, pia pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili wanasema ana kinywa cha kuchiriza sumu. Katika kipindi cha miezi 8 pekee, gavana wa kaunti ya Nyeri Mutahi Kahiga amelazimika kujitenga na maneno yake binafsi baada ya kukabiliwa na hasira ya umma. Jana aliomba msamaha kabla ya kujiuzulu wadhifa wake wa naibu mwenyekiti wa baraza la magavana nchini, ama ukipenda COG. Kisa na maana, alinukuliwa akisema heri Raila amefariki, angalau eneo la Mlima Kenya lisibaguliwe kimaendeleo na utawala wa Ruto. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 2. Lakini gavana tayari ashaomba familia ya Raila msamaha kwa namna ilivyoibua maswali iwapo alijutia matamshi. Na hii ndio habari kuu ambayo imezua mjadala kwenye mitandao ya kijamii, na lazima tutazungumzia haya na wageni wangu leo. Vidokezo zaidi, katibu wa KTDA watofautiana kuhusu bonasi. Kwingineko, majambazi wahangaisha wakazi kule Likoni Mombasa, na kikao cha Putin na Trump chatibuka ni maswala ya nchi za kigeni. Kwingineko pale juu, tamasha za kumwenzi Raila Oktoba 31. Hizi ni tamasha za kitaifa zimepangwa kufanyika katika uwanja wa Uhuru Park mnamo Oktoba au mwisho wa mwezi huu kumwenzi Odinga. If at all you're still mourning Raila Odinga, there's still an opportunity for you, especially if you are in the city. There will be a festival to mourn the late former Prime Minister at the Uhuru Park on October 31st, na ndio habari imepewa kipaumbele pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili. Masuala ya spoti pale, Arsenal FC sasa moto kama ya pasi. Nakubaliana naye mwandishi wa habari hii, waandikisha ushindi wa 3 mfululizo ligi ya klabu bingwa barani Ulaya. Wanasema watu wanafunga tu na set piece, wanafunga tu na set piece. Kwani bao yanafaa kufungwa namna gani? Bao bora bao. Arsenal. Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Twende kwenye gazeti la The Star. It is the same story that we see on the front page of the Daily Nation and even on the front page of Taifa Leo. It is about the Nyeri governor. Kahiga's loose tongue on Raila sparks outrage. And the Star has a way of just elongating the headline, saying the same thing. Look at this. Okay. 2 words, Mtemasumu. We know who you're talking about. 2 words, loose cannon. But when you get to the Star, they have to tell you everything. Kahiga's loose tongue on Raila sparks outrage. Okay, fine. Anyway, the county chief has been stripped of the Council of Governors position. Anyway, we do understand that he actually resigned before he was stripped by the Council of Governors. Now, what the leaders said, and they've quoted quite a number of leaders on the front page here, including Abdul Swamad Nasir, who's the ODM party leader, deputy party leader, also the governor of Mombasa. Gladys Wanga was the ODM national chairperson. Oscar Sudi, who's a vocal MP of Kapseret, and Anwe Guru, MP of Kirinyaga County, all of them condemning the comments by Mutahi Kahiga. And this story has been covered on pages 4 and 5. And they're talking about dancing on Odinga's grave. Kahiga's outburst triggers national storm. If you are a frequent visitor to social media, there's actually you cannot talk about anything else currently on X, Facebook, or even TikTok. It's all about Kahiga and what he said and what it may or may not have meant to the country. Other quick stories there on the inside pages of the Star today. They talk about on page 6 how the deputy president led team, the team led by the deputy president, averted chaos at Raila's funeral. If you want to read more about that, that's on page 6 of this paper. All right, and on the back page of the Star, we have the hammer who is striking. Boniface, the hammer Mugunde, a boxer, has delivered a first-round knockout at Africa's On 3 show. That's the Star, fresh, independent, different. Today you have to pay to buy it, and it's only 60 shillings. Other stories on the front page of the Star. Puzzle deepens as UG, that's Uganda military, denies holding Njagi and Oyo. These are the 2 Kenyan activists who are still missing, and they are said to have been abducted in Uganda, and their whereabouts are still unknown. This is a big story on another paper here in Kenya, and we'll get to that shortly. Bridge health research gaps to impact lives, urge experts, is another story that you can read more on page 2. And pale juu, how Kindiki Oburu-led committee averted chaos at Raila funeral. We've mentioned that already. That's a Star. Take a look at the People Daily. And they have a picture there about with the chairperson and other officials of the ODM party when they came out yesterday to condemn alleged remarks by the Nyeri County Governor, Mutahi Kahiga. So we have ODM leaders led by Chairperson Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga addressing the press in Kisumu yesterday. They condemned the governor of Nyeri's remarks over ODM leader Raila Odinga's death. But the main story is not about that. On the front page of the People Daily, they talk about why Ruto's presidency isn't safe about Raila's death. Paliju, who's in and who's out in the planned cabinet shakeup? And I think this is the most bold, this is the boldest paper so far, because there's been a lot of talk about, a possible cabinet reshuffle following the passing on of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Now, this is the only paper that is making mention of that story. That is a possible cabinet reshuffle to accommodate more people to ensure that ODM remains in the broad-based arrangement. That story is on page 5 of this paper, the People Daily, so you can go and read a lot more about that. All right, this is a paper I was talking about, the Standard. Missing, dead silence. Is this the biggest discussion we're having in Kenya today? Is it? I'm simply asking. Because this is a story that the Standard has decided to go with. So they say, almost a month after Kenyan activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo vanished in Uganda, their families are trapped in agony and unanswered questions. Kampala disowns knowledge of their fate, while Nairobi's deafening silence and shadowy diplomacy deepen suspicions of a cross-border cover-up and stoke public fury over official indifference. They have the picture there of the Prime Cabinet Secretary of Kenya, Musalia Mudavadi, who's also in charge of the Foreign Affairs docket. The accusation is he has remained very silent on the fact that these two individuals are still missing, these Kenyan activists. We do have a physical copy of this paper because this is the only story featured on the front page of the Standard, no other highlights, so allow us to get into the paper to take a look at other stories featured here. A very interesting story on page 2 of this paper about an ex-ambassador whose bitter divorce and 38-year-old battle that ended up disinheriting his children. We talk about Peter Echaria, who died about 11 years ago. But the battle with the former wife, Njeri, continued until last week when the court eventually gave its ruling. He was employed as a civil servant in 1961 and later joined the diplomatic service and posted to Moscow in Russia. Another family-linked story, love bloomed in the US, flourished in Addis Ababa, and it withered in Tigoni in Nairobi. No, it's the same story about Echaria, that diplomat, on page 2 of that paper. All right, other stories on the inside pages, cabinet shake-up looms. Now, this is the only other paper. We've seen this mentioned on the front page of the People Daily. But yes, the Standard as well has the same story. A possible cabinet reshuffle. They say cabinet shake-up looms as Ruto moves to tighten grip on ODM. It is still all about ODM. Even this discussion of a possible cabinet shake-up. Are we going to see more members of ODM get into cabinet? Are we going to see probably some members of the Odinga family incorporated into cabinet? So far, we do not have any members of that family in the cabinet. But is this what we expect? That is a story on page 6 of the Standard. Trying times for ODM without Raila. That's a common story talking about what next after Raila Odinga. And why Gachagua stayed away from the Raila emotional farewell burial is on page 10 of the Standard. On the back page, of course, a very nice discussion there that I really appreciate about my beloved Arsenal. Victor Gyökeres, hungry to build on Champions League double. He scored a brace when they beat Atletico Madrid at the Emirates Stadium on Tuesday evening. Other Champions League results, Barcelona walitandika Olympiacos mabao 6-0. Kwingineko, PSG walichapa Bayer Leverkusen mabao 7-2. Dortmund wakachapa Copenhagen mabao 4-2. Just some of the high scores in the Champions League fixtures this week. And that's the Standard. And we finalize with the Business Daily, matters NCBA rallying Anning Kenyatta's and the Ndegwa's. Listen to this. The families of retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former Central Bank of Kenya Governor Philip Ndegwa have gained 12.4 billion Kenya shillings in paper wealth in 5 days of trading, as share price of NCBA Group surged 38.5%. Jamaa alikuwa in mourning kule Bondo. Amekaa tu yeye anafanya tu anaomboleza rafiki yake, lakini within days his family earned 12. Okay, fine. Even if it's half of that, they earned billions in a matter of days. Kuna watu na viatu. Away from that story, Nairobi Expressway losses widen to 1.8 billion shillings, and people wonder, okay, fine. Why are losses linked to the Nairobi Expressway? After all, they hiked their prices and their costs for people using that road quite high, despite taxes being dropped. But then, according to this story, the losses have widened to 1.8 billion shillings amid traffic surge. Read more on that story on page 2. Okay, let me just confirm. I do have a physical copy. On page 2 of this paper, yes, indeed. On the ticker, KRA breaks cuts on workers' welfare benefits tax. Mogo faces class action suit in lending terms dispute. So 3 borrowers have filed a class action suit against microloans provider Mogo Auto over its lending model and recovery practices, which they term predatory and unfair. And if at all you visit social media streets frequently, you may have heard of Mogo, and very many people complaining there. Finally, on the front page of the Business Daily. And finally, Kenya's goat meat sales to UAE hit 5.47 billion shillings. Munaambiwa muende mkuwe wafugaji wa mifugo, munakataa. Watu wanauza mbuzi kule Dubai, and it's earning Kenya about 5.47 billion shillings. That's the Business Daily. Once again, a reminder of the people who will be in studio to help us discuss the headlines this morning. Dr. Peter Mbaye, who's the Secretary Planning and Economic Affairs at DCP, they've come under a lot of criticism on their actions, behavior during the official mourning period of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. They've also gotten a lot of strays after the governor of Nyeri made some unfortunate comments. And Dr. Peter Mbaye will be, I'm sure, trying to defend his party from those. Wilson Sosion was a veteran educationist, also a veteran unionist, and a former member of parliament, will be in studio, alongside also Zachariah Barasa, who's a political analyst. Do stand by for that in a short few minutes. Let's take a look at